We're good.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome to the December 5th pre-council meeting, 5:30 in the city chambers. Mayor Robert Odekirk presiding.
Begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Clement.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Guerrero.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman. Here. Councilwoman Reardon.
Here.
First, we have a few presentations. The first presentation is the overview of the city's NPDES Stormwater Quality Program.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this presentation is an overview of our stormwater quality program. This is a requirement of our NPDES permit, which is National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. It is required by the federal government, which in turn delegates authority of this to the Illinois EPA. We are required annually to do a public education component of this program. We've done this a few times previously, so some of the stuff will be a little familiar. But Dan Bounds, who is the city's consultant that helps us with our stormwater permit, is going to give a brief presentation. And then he's going to also talk briefly about some changes to the permit program that are coming into effect for next year's permit. It's going to be a little more stringent than it has been in the past. Dan can elaborate on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan. And at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, either Dan or I can answer any of them.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Good afternoon. Good evening. So Illinois EPA will have a more stringent program next year. There'll be a new permit that's issued to every village, every city in the state of Illinois. Then ratchets it up the requirements a little bit for the public education program and the stormwater program. I'll get into a little bit more detail on that at the end of my slides, but first just some required information that has to be discussed in a public forum. So the city has a stormwater quality program administered by Illinois EPA through permit. City staff, contractors are required to implement best management practices to prevent pollutants from entering the city's stormwater drain system to the maximum extent practicable to protect our local waters and our water supplies. So this permit's called the MS4 program, or Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Program. It's a general permit that's issued by Illinois EPA to every city, every village in the state, over 440 statewide. And the permit has a 5-year duration. That's recently ended, which is why a new permit will be issued probably next year. And as Greg alluded to, this is the Federal Clean Water Act program that we're complying with in the program. So municipal stormwater can carry a number of pollutants, a number of different types of chemicals, toxins to our local waterways. Anything that's left behind at a job site, material, chemicals can be picked up by stormwater, picked up by snow melt and runoff. So this on the slide just showing an overview of the type of things that can come out of the city's storm drain system into our local waterways: sediments, suspended solids, phosphorus and nitrogen for nutrients, fertilizers, pesticides, metals, bacteria, and other types of trash and debris and things that could get people sick or degrade fish populations or the environment in our local waters. There are several waters in the city that are on Illinois EPA's list of impaired water bodies. They're shown on the screen here. Des Plaines River and DePage River, and the different chemicals or pollutants that are of concern for those two major rivers. And then a lot of the tributaries, as well as shown on the screen, contain either too much phosphorus, too much chloride from road salting or other sodium chloride type sources, sometimes too little dissolved oxygen, sometimes too much fecal coliform or other types of bacteria that could cause illnesses. So these are the waterways that Illinois EPA has sampled and has shown that are on the impaired waters list. So the city has a stormwater management plan that describes how this program is implemented. It talks about the organization of the city's stormwater quality program, which departments are of the city are responsible for different parts of the program, and what are the commitments that the city is implementing to comply with the permit and administer the program. The program has 6 major control areas, or 6 program areas we call them, for public education and outreach, public involvement, part of this presentation tonight, recognizing and responding to illicit discharges or dumping within the city, construction site oversight, post-construction management for stormwater runoff, and then pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations that city staff implement. All of these program areas have to have best management practices that city staff implement to meet water quality goals. So the program consists of a notice of intent, which is basically the permit application every 5 years to administer this program. That'll be due again next year when the new permit comes out. Then your stormwater management plan will have to be updated once the new requirements are set. And every year there's an annual report that goes into IEPA that explains what the city has done to comply with water quality requirements of the permit. All of this information is on the stormwater webpage of your Public Works webpage and kept up to date as required. So for any questions on the program, we've got local contacts, phone number 815-724-4200 for utilities. And then people can also inquire through the website as well. So just a summary of the major new requirements coming out of Illinois EPA next year. We've seen a public notice draft of the permit that was out a while back. Illinois EPA received literally hundreds of comments on the permit, so that's the main reason it's taking so long to come out and why we aren't expecting to see it to next year. But the stormwater management plan is going to have to be updated. IEPA is expecting some more targeted public education and outreach to residential types of pollution and whatever the city considers its high priority commercial and industrial type pollutant sources as well. So a survey will be required after this public education element is updated to see how effective that new public education program is. And then ordinance updates will be necessary because new things will be required for the city to do. And the most interesting one to me is that your ordinance in the future needs to have a requirement that anybody that releases like a spill or a discharge into the city's storm drain system has to notify the city that that has occurred so that you can implement appropriate action for that discharge or that spill. One of the more resource-intensive new requirements coming is the facility inventory and self-inspection requirement that was in the draft permit. So the permit said any city-owned facility is going to have to be in a map-based inventory that identifies which water bodies, stormwater discharges from those facilities into where. So map-based inventory. And then a quarterly inspection of all of those facilities during wet weather and a quarterly inspection of all of those facilities during dry weather. So that could be 8 inspections per year for every facility that's in that inventory, which will take some resources for doing those inspections, documenting all of those inspections for when IEPA does their audit to make sure that they've happened. And then all of the new requirements are going to be additional information and additional specificity that's going to have to go into the annual report to IEPA every June 1st. So those are going to be a little bit more time consuming for staff, and it'll take a while to get all that information together compared to years past. So that's the update and things that are heading our way in the future for the local stormwater quality program. Any questions for Greg or I?
You have a question. And for the benefit of our citizens, about 10 years ago, we spent a lot of money on the sewer separation program. Are we currently in compliance with the federal and state mandates for our sewer separation of water here in the city?
So I didn't work on that. Greg, you have?
That was the public utility side. I believe they are, but I don't want to speak and say they're 100%, but I know they've been working through that over the years.
Okay.
But that's totally related because when you do a sewer separation project, that now creates separate storm sewers, which are in this water quality program.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Real quick, I'm just curious, actually, it's not up to us, it's not up to the city or you. You had the list on the one slide where the IEPA has identified waterways with impairments,
Yes.
anywhere from fecal matter, or fecal
coliform, which is
Right.
a bacteria that is
Right,
representative of the.
or not enough oxygen,
Correct,
and so forth and so on. So they're identified impairments, therefore they go on the list of impaired waterways, right?
correct.
How come the Rock Run Creek is on the list and it says unknown impairment?
So that may be a water body where IEPA has taken fish counts or taken a look at the biology in that area and has seen impairments or not what you would expect as far as the biology of a creek, but they couldn't find a particular source or a pollutant causing that. It wasn't evident in their sampling.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Is there a recording playing out there? I don't know what we're hearing.
Somebody's talking on a phone that sounds like it's, I don't know, someone's phone is on, they don't know it or something.
No, I'm sorry, not you.
I hear a conversation.
I can hear it too, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. All right, well, good, thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
It's just very distracting.
Okay, next is the Joliet Public Library budget. Megan Nolan, Executive Director.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you about Joliet Public Library and all the many services we provide to the community. We've had a fabulous year, and we're so happy to share this information with you and with everyone watching. While it's true that we offer a large and varied collection of books, music, and movies for patrons to enjoy, we offer so much more than collections. Tonight, I'm going to show you why Joliet Public Library is not just any library. Our mission statement here encapsulates the work that we do 68 hours a week, 52 weeks a year for the Joliet community. And one of the most important services the library offers is services to our youngest population. Promoting literacy and partnering with local school districts to foster a love of reading is one of our highest priorities. We know that all kids learn differently, so we offer a wide range of engagements for all ages. From traditional story times to cool robotic classes, kids are entertained at the library all year long. Along with fun experiences, we work hard to foster the literacy rates in local school districts by offering a free tutoring program. This is through partnerships with Joliet Junior College and University of St. Francis. We also try to prevent what's known as summer slide by offering a robust summer reading program that encourages reading for the whole family. However, we don't just serve children who walk through our doors. A huge part of our efforts involves outreach. We go into schools, preschools, community events, expos, wherever children and their parents are present. Not only that, every student in districts 86, 30C, 70C, 81, 84, 202, and 204 now can have a library card even if they live in an unincorporated area. Our staff has worked very hard to ensure that all kids have access to the resources they need to be successful. We are so proud of our work with children in our community. Our outreach does not end with children, however. We reach people wherever they are. We have outreach staff, many of them bilingual, who get out into our community and make the library's presence felt. We give presentations about our services, have booths at local events, partner with the Spanish Community Center to provide outreach to our Latino community. We believe in having a seat at every table. Our staff are members of the local Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis, City Center Partnership, Joliet Area Chamber, Will County Center for Community Concerns, Greater Joliet Alliance for Youth, Will Grundy Medical Clinic, and many, many more organizations. One of our most unique and frequently used services is our local history collection. Now housed in our historic fireplace room in the Ottawa Street branch, we help residents to trace the history of their home, their genealogy, find old newspaper articles, find their grandparents and old yearbooks, and so much more. So if I were to name the one thing that makes Joliet Public Library not just any library, it would be our new world-class digital media studio. What started in a tiny old office from a Gates grant in 2011 now spans the entire lower level of the Ottawa Street building and boasts an industrial lab with 3D printers, t-shirt printer, laser printer, 2 audio recording booths, a bank of computers with graphic software, a huge new video studio, and so much more. Residents can make a one-on-one appointment with our talented staff to do almost anything. We teach classes and we have a vibrant new photography club. We've seen a huge uptick in usage since 2021, and I expect this to continue growing as the word gets out about what an awesome and unusual space we have here. So 2022, we saw the completion of the long-awaited Project Burnham. After years of planning and work, at last our beautifully remodeled downtown branch is ready for patrons to use and enjoy. Not only did we recapture the elegance of the 1903 Burnham side of the building by restoring old woodwork and replicating the light fixtures, furnishings, and flooring, we modernized the entire facility with state-of-the-art technology and spaces for every age group and interest. If you haven't yet stopped by to see all the many features in this newly renovated building, I invite you to do so. We remain so grateful to City Council for selling the bonds to jumpstart this project and to the state of Illinois for underwriting the project with a construction grant. So one of the best things we offer the community is our huge amount of free events. In 2021, when COVID was still very prevalent, we still offered over 800 different events. And then between January and October in 2022, we offered over 1,300 different events to the community. So everyone knows us for Star Wars Day, which is by far our largest event, but we are so much more than that. We host baby lap sits, ESL classes, genealogy clubs, teen crafts clubs and classes, virtual citizenship classes, book discussions, local history presentations, petting zoos, animal programs, and so much more. Some of these programs are in person and some are still virtual, some people like that, and there's something to engage every age group in our community. No organization operates in a vacuum, and Joliet Library is no exception. That's why we're so proud to highlight our dozens of community partners tonight at this presentation. This slide shows many of the organizations and businesses we collaborate with throughout the year, and I'd like to personally thank all of our partners who help us advance our mission. So pictures are great and stories are great, but sometimes you really need numbers to see the whole picture. In the first 10 months of 2022, during a continuing pandemic and a major renovation project, our library still boasted incredibly healthy statistics. Our community is using us and using us heavily. Nearly 190,000 people have physically walked through our doors so far this year. And best of all, I'm so proud to say that we do all this for an unbelievable return on investment. We operate at about $44 per capita, which is one of the lowest, if not the lowest, ratios in the entire state. So one of the things that really matters to the library's leadership team is our users' experience. What do our patrons really think of us? Our staff members hear great comments all the time, but we also have online reviews that tell us how we're doing. We monitor them all the time to make sure we're giving taxpayers top-notch customer service and high-quality materials and programs. These are just a few of the complimentary comments we've received lately. It feels very good to know that we make a real difference in people's lives and we're an integral part of the Joliet community. Before I end tonight, I just want to give a shout out to my wonderful staff. The 94 individuals who currently work at Joliet Public Library genuinely care about the people they serve. They want to connect kids with a perfect book. They want to help the out-of-work gentleman to find his dream job. They want to help someone with a new scary diagnosis find relative factual information. They work evenings and weekends. They attend outreach events in cold and rainy weather. They go the extra mile to serve the residents of Joliet. I am so proud to work with them and to be able to share with you all tonight about the fantastic, important, life-changing work that they do every day. Thank you for this opportunity to showcase our past year and to show you why Joliet Library isn't just any library. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'd just like to say, if you have not been there since the renovation was complete, you are missing out on something amazing. Your lower level, I guarantee you, if you go into that lower level, you won't believe what you see in this media area. It's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might?
Yes.
Yes, Madam Director, thank you so much for this excellent presentation. Like my counterpart said, Councilwoman Reardon, it is an amazing, amazing feat that we are doing, and thank you so much again for the access to the library cards for everyone and your ability to increase the literacy rate in our town. So we really, really appreciate that. And people are so excited about the digital room. You know, just in conversation, I was pointing some of our young people that way who really loves that kind of work. They didn't know it was there, and now they are so excited that they have that access. So, Madam Director, thank you and your staff and the whole board for what you do.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Mayor,
Yes,
yes, I've been down there. It's something else. It really is nice. But I know she wanted an increase in the tax levy. What's that, why?
Okay, I'd be happy to answer that. We haven't had an increase in our levy since 2017, and the increase is $120,000. Our staff, unlike the city staff, which is mostly full-time, a lot of our staff, most of our staff, in fact, are part-time. And we have a 3-year increase in our minimum wage, starting this year and for the next 2 years. And so in order to be able to pay a wage to not just the minimum wage that we have to pay our lowest level staff, but the staff that bump up against that, and then levels 2 and 3, and even 4, have to be raised to some degree. And so over 5 years, if you take the 5 years that we didn't get an increase, that amounts to about $24,000 a year, or about $2,000 a month of an increase. So it's a very, very modest increase that we're asking for. Also, there is some work that came up during Project Burnham that was out of the scope of the project. Some repair work that needs to be done on the exterior of the Burnham side of the building, on the stairwell, that we budgeted for also. So you're our corporate authority, and we're asking you for help for these expenses that are out of our control. They're an unfunded mandate, especially the minimum wage increase.
Okay, and how much of the COVID money did you receive?
Are you talking about the grants that we received?
Well, every entities, like the Rialto and everybody else got a stipend, some type of stipend from the COVID money, and I was wondering.
Right, we got about $17,000 at the time for.
Only 17,000?
At the time, yes.
Have you received anything else since?
We are receiving a grant from ARPA funds that's going for an outreach vehicle for the east side of Joliet, because we don't have a physical building there, and that's not feasible. So we're getting an outreach vehicle, and we did receive about $260,000 from Will County ARPA funds. But we haven't yet received it. We just received word that we got the grant a couple days ago.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mayor?
yes.
Real quick, again, you said in the report there's roughly 190,000 visits to the library, both Black Road and downtown combined.
Yes.
Have you tracked, or is it possible, how many actual individuals that is? Because I'm sure there's some people that might go there twice a week.
It's hard to track that, Councilman, because it's counters who count people walking past.
Right.
So it is hard to track that, how much is repeat traffic. I'm sure we do have our regulars, but anecdotally, I'll tell you that since the project ended, we've seen lots and lots of new faces and families coming downtown.
Well, do you have a number, for instance, like of actual Joliet residents? Because like you said, you've expanded your outreach to unincorporated areas who aren't part of what should be a library district, but is the municipal boundaries to a point, because the other half of the city up by me is Plainfield Library.
Right.
Do you have a number of how many actual city resident cards you have?
I can get you that information.
I'd be curious if you don't mind.
The number, and also I'm not sure, but I think possibly the circulations that we have that are our own residents versus reciprocal borrowing, which is other residents coming in and using our library. I can get you that for tomorrow night if you'd like.
Thank you. And then I have one other question. This isn't the first time that we've had to go through this, you know. It's kind of a hybrid relationship,
Right.
you know. We don't get directly involved in your operations in any way, shape, or form, nor do we get involved in formulating the budget.
Correct.
We went through a similar thing with a levy increase back in 2013-14, that era. And I asked back then, and I didn't really get a great answer. Not, maybe there isn't a great answer. I don't think, I'm not asking you to answer this because this goes before you got here, right? Why are we still doing this? Why aren't they their own district with their own elected officials that would answer? That, you know, you wouldn't have to come here then. It wouldn't be this awkward hybrid relationship. Can anybody explain, maybe legal, Sabrina, do you know why we do this? I mean, we really have no oversight per se, right?
That's something I'd have to research.
Could you find that out?
Why we
Because
started doing it that way.
I think I can explain to some degree, so I'll just quickly, not to bore everyone watching, but Illinois libraries have several types. So there's districts, which are completely independent and alone, and they can bridge two different communities. There are village libraries, which are a complete pass-through, separate from the village. They just do a levy as a pass-through, and they have their own elected officials. We are one of the rarer forms, we're a city form of government. So it means that our board is appointed by the mayor, a 9-person board appointed, and that our levy is through the city. So it's how we were incorporated in 1873. That is the reason we have to do this every year.
it seems like you might be able to get an increase in revenues if you did go by way of a traditional district, because those folks would be then on the tax rolls that are currently unincorporated and not paying direct taxes. I know they pay fees of sorts, but is it something we can look into? Because I think autonomy would be great for you guys, don't you?
I think there's pros and cons, because districts are tax capped, and they're different in a way that we aren't, because we're part of the city of Joliet. We can talk about this.
Well, yeah, we'll have legal look into it and see, because we haven't visited that issue in over a decade now. But it's something to look at, I mean, this just seems like a cumbersome process for what really is a separate entity from the city. Like I said, most of my residents don't even belong to like you said, it must be rare. It's a hybrid because it's not a district and it's not municipal, because not everybody in the city is a member, but it's not a district encompassing the city and beyond. So if you could look into that, Sabrina, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Next, we have the Rialto Square Theater budget. Wade Welsh, Executive Director.
I'm not Wade Welsh. Wade will be here in a moment. Good evening, Mayor, City Council staff. My name is Bob Flotto, and I have the privilege of chairing the Rialto Authority Board. As you all know, we also have a Rialto Foundation Board. Steve Randich chairs that. He's with us tonight in the audience. We also have a number of our board members with us here as well. This is a busy time right now for the theater. As most of you know, this is the home for the holiday period. And in that 31-day period, we will have approximately 16,000 patrons walk through the theater and thoroughly enjoy the magic of the Rialto Square Theater. The theater itself represents a significant economic engine for downtown. It represents the eastern boundary, if you will, for the city square, city center development. So we are an important part of this city. Our budget year, as you know, is July 1 through June 30. So we're about halfway through our year. I thank you for your support in the past, and we are asking you to continue that support to the extent of $475,000, which is what we've asked for in the past. Just to make you aware of some things that we're doing down the road. In our last board meeting, we talked about putting together a strategic plan in the next year. We talked about that we will be applying for ARPA funds through the county. I had a recent conversation with our county exec about that. She's encouraged us to apply. And then we are scheduling a legislative tour in early January as well. I'd like to introduce Wade Welsh. I know some of you have met him. Wade comes to us most recently from Wintrust Sports Complex, where he was the general manager for 18 months. And prior to that, he was at Chicagoland Speedway, worked for Scott Panic. In fact, Scott's the one that referred him to me, and we threw him in the mix, and he came out on top. So he is going to walk through the presentation that's up on your screen. Wade?
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me take a few minutes of your time to walk through and kind of talk about the Rialto Square Theater. So as Bob mentioned, I'm new to town. Been here since June, so been on the job about 6 months, and to say a lot has happened over those 6 months would be an understatement to date. So a lot of great things, as Bob mentioned, going on with Home for the Holidays. But as we get into this presentation, one of the biggest things going on is a major renovation project that needs to take place at the Rialto. We are coming up on 100 years of the Rialto, coming up in 2026, which is an exciting time, but as you know, with 100-year-old buildings come lots and lots of work that needs to be done. So she needs some love, and we're looking to give her that love so the next 100 years are as good as the first 100 years. So just a quick presentation overview. We're going to look at a financial snapshot, look at 2023 fiscal year to date, look at the programming and entertainment that we're bringing to downtown Joliet, the venue improvements that have happened, and then like I mentioned, taking quite a bit of time to talk about the renovations that we're hopefully going to be completing here sooner rather than later. So here's our fiscal outlook over the past 3 years. As you can see, obviously, as everyone was, we were greatly affected by COVID in fiscal year 2021. That's why revenues were down to the level they were. And we're making a little progress. Obviously, as you can see there in fiscal year 2022, the loss is less than it was in 20 and 2021. And as we look at the financial picture for 2023, it's even a brighter picture there where our budget is a break-even budget if we still get the support of the city with the subsidy. So here are the highlights so far. Through October of this year, 2022, as Bob mentioned, we're on a fiscal year, not a calendar year. Currently beating budget through October 2022, which is great. Fiscal year budget, as I just mentioned before, is budgeted break even, assuming that $475,000 City of Joliet subsidy. We have hosted 22 weddings in the first 4 months of fiscal year 2023. We're on pace to have over 50 weddings at the complex, which would break records for the Rialto. That is big business for us on that side of things, but we're also very cognizant that obviously shows bring many more people downtown for the restaurants and the bars and stuff like that. So it's that very fine line of balancing act that obviously from a financial standpoint, the weddings are very lucrative to us, many times much more than the shows are, but obviously we also know our duty to the city and the area to make sure that we're putting people in downtown Joliet. 7 sold out shows so far just since July of 2022. We're on pace to host over 180 events through the next year. One of the big wins, a huge kudos to Jack Erickson on our team, who I believe is here tonight, secured a naming rights partnership for the Rialto with Old National Bank, as you can see on the right there. So a huge win for us from a sponsorship standpoint on that side of things. And as Bob mentioned as well in his remarks, the board is in the early stages of developing a long-term strategic plan for the theater. Being my 6 months here, I think one of the things that's I've seen very clearly is we put a lot of Band-Aids on things for many years. And I think moving forward, we're looking for concrete long-term fixes instead of continuing to put those Band-Aids and kind of quote unquote kicking the can down the road. Here's a little bit of the programming that's either happened in 2022 or will be happening in fiscal year 2023, obviously in early 2023. So lots of different genres from comedy to rock concerts, to kids events, to blues, you name it, to the Ukrainian ballet just came through to help kick off our Home for the Holidays just a week or two ago on that side of things. So a lot of big names, a lot of those on the screen there are the sold out shows, but we're certainly trying to mix up our offerings as much as we can and deliver that diverse background of events. So we're not just catering to one genre of music or events and things like that. Venue improvements today. So as many of you might have noticed on Van Buren Street, we have some new window coatings on some of the windows. It used to just be the brown paper, which obviously was an eyesore. More of those to come. Obviously, a few of our partners are listed on there that made that possible. One of the big things happening that we were hoping was going to happen for the Home for the Holidays this year, but schedule just didn't permit, is a mural that will be on the front of the Rialto, probably happening now in spring of 2023. Huge kudos to our foundation for spearheading that and Steve Randage to get that mural to come to life. A couple pictures on the right there kind of show you that. Our artist is still working on all those pictures, and like I said, obviously weather permitting, hopefully in early 2023, once the weather breaks, we'll get that up on the building. Rekeying project. One of the key things when I walked into the building that I wanted to happen is I found out very quickly that many people in the city of Joliet probably still had keys to the Rialto dating back many years. So one of the first things I wanted to do is secure that unbelievable building that's been there for 100 years and make sure that the people that are supposed to be there are in that building. So We have rekeyed the entire exterior of the Rialto on that side of things. And the last thing, as part of the new 5-year agreement that the authority board signed with Venue Works, we are getting new bars and food and beverage equipment that should be here in early 2023. So brand new bars, brand new coolers, brand new point of sales, many more point of sales. We'll be able to take Apple Pay and Google Pay, and you'll be able to tap and pay, and all those sorts of things that we currently can't do right now with our infrastructure and our POS systems. Now on to the big project, the Rialto renovations. As you guys know, the Rialto received a $5 million grant from the state of Illinois back in March to complete renovations to the theater. I came on board in June, and in July, as part of a group of us, we selected JLK Architects, were chosen as the firm to manage the renovation project. There were 3 key areas that need immediate attention: roofs and masonry. We have a total of 10 roofs on our buildings, all of which are well past their useful lives. Many are 40 or 50 years old and have just been patched and kind of held together. I think that all came to a head back in March of this year where we had a leak directly over the stage. Obviously that's game over for any events, anything like that. Obviously it was patched, but still needs to be completely ripped off and redone moving forward. HVAC systems, both our heating and cooling systems, to say are limping along would be an understatement. I give a huge credit to our union engineers that are working on those day and night to keep them going. We have no opportunity to control heat or air conditioning in our building. The air conditioning is on, it is on full blast, and it feels like a meat locker there in July because it's 58 degrees. Same for the winter, the heat, there is no, it's on or off with the boiler system, so it's playing a lot of games of opening the dampers to bring in cool air and all that. It's a full-time job just to keep those things running, but also keep those temperatures and stuff like that. So they've been doing it for quite a few years, obviously well before me, but this is something that has to be fixed in the next few years. These systems just aren't going to be able to live much longer on that side of things. And then the fire sprinkler system. Obviously with a 100-year-old building, fire sprinkler systems weren't in place back then. Obviously we've been grandfathered in, but as you guys know, obviously we had some insurance issues earlier in the year that made us look into the fire sprinkler systems to see if that was needed on that side of things. So currently we're in a good place as far as the insurance goes on that, and it is not needed. But obviously in this day and age, we still want to look at getting that system in place if we have the funds to do it. So here's the number. So as the last slide showed, we got $5 million from the state of Illinois. Total renovations just on the projects that I listed up there is well over $13 million. And it kind of breaks down, you can kind of see everything line item by line item there. I won't go through and bore everybody with the details, but obviously much more than what we have in the coffers as we currently sit here today on that side of things. So we are feverishly working behind the scenes to make up that difference in a variable ways, as Bob mentioned, looking at some other grants, working with the state to try to find those funds to close that gap between the $5 million and the $13.1 million that you see there. We will probably move forward in phases. Right now, hopefully the board will vote at the end of this month on what phases we look at. So the couple options we have is taking care of the shell, so take care of the roofs and the masonry work with our $5 million, and then work on the HVAC after that. Or the second option is to, in essence, pick the roofs that are in the worst shape, get those done, patch up the others, and get either the coolers, the HVAC, the chillers, or the boilers for that $5 million, but we couldn't do both with those dollars. So again, big gap. We have some ideas. We're working feverishly to close those gaps. As Bob mentioned, we will have guests out in January from local state reps and stuff to kind of take that look, to kind of see where we're at as far as that goes. Here's just some images. So always want that wow factor of how bad sometimes things are, so people understand. But I am more than gracious. Anyone wants to, I know a couple of our authority board members have taken me up on it over the past couple of weeks. Would love to give anyone a tour that is interested to kind of see the underlings of the boilers and the chillers and our systems downstairs. So it's a scary experience, but obviously when they're 40 plus years old, that comes with the territory on that side of things. And this is our masonry work and roofs upstairs, or excuse me, on the roof. As you can see, some just flat out missing, some's giving way, just not a good situation, standing water. All that needs to be addressed and be addressed immediately. So I think this is the project that I hear the most about, mostly from our female patrons and stuff, is our restroom renovation project. So this predates me. As you can see, we received $500,000 grant from the state of Illinois to complete restrooms in our first floor. In spring of 2022, DLR Architects were chosen as the firm to manage that renovation project. We are ready to rock and roll and could break ground tomorrow on our renovations of the bathrooms. The issue is, we have been instructed that our roof is in such bad shape that if we spend this $500,000 to update our bathrooms, they could be destroyed with any good rainstorm or anything like that because the roof is in such bad shape and leaking. So we've been instructed until that roof is completed, not to touch these bathroom renovations until that's done. Here's just a few of the drawings, like I said, that are completely done. They're ready to go and start construction on it. So it'd be almost tripling the number of women's stalls on the first floor, which is a huge thing for us. There's many nights where we have to shut down the men's restroom and turn it into a women's restroom at the Rialto. So this will be a huge win for us once we're able to do this. The men's as well, it'd be doubling the number of urinals for the men's side of things as well. So it should hopefully definitely help on sold out showings. With that being said, I have one more speaker to come up, Jen Howard, who is on our foundation board, and is also obviously, as you know, a big part of the Joliet Chamber, would just like to speak on our behalf.
Can you come back later if I have questions?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you, the mayor and the council today. I am here today representing the Rialto Foundation Board, which I am currently serving as vice president, and also representing the Joliet Region Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the numerous businesses that benefit from the thousands of people that the theater brings to downtown Joliet each year. Many of the businesses are thriving, especially the independent restaurant investments from the owners of restaurants such as Cut 158, Juliet's Tavern, Musa Tap Bar, Chicago Street Pub, El Primo Restaurant, Sunshine Cafe, along with many others. With the revitalization of downtown and development of the Chicago Street Plaza, the number will continue to grow. As cliche as it sounds, it takes a village to maintain a beloved treasure. In this case, that treasure is the Rialto Square Theater. The city, the foundation board, the authority board, Venue Works, and the hundreds of volunteers all have been that village. Let's continue to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes?
Okay, this is an old question, you may or may not know the answer. Many years ago, there was a sign fiasco, okay? And part of the sign was left in Indiana. And we were supposed to get the other part of that, and they were supposed to take part of it and put it up behind the theater, where if that didn't work out, if you look at the brick wall in the back, you can faintly see the letters Rialto there. So that was supposed to be restored to somewhat. So do we ever know what happened with the rest of that sign?
I do not know what's happened to him. Steve knows.
Steve, okay. Hi, Steve, you were there. What happened?
Yeah, sure was. What happened, Jan, was that sign ended up, we were fortunate enough that Great Signs allowed the foundation to move the complete sign out of Indiana to Joliet without charging us anything to move it. Part of that sign was actually, if you see the Joliet Catholic sign at the corner of Ingalls and Larkin, that's part of the Rialto sign. We actually raised the money and sold it, or we didn't sell it, we actually paid the foundation back for, it was around $35,000 for that piece, put together that sign for Joliet Catholic. The remaining sign, which was the long piece that you're talking about, really ended up, unfortunately, becoming out of date as technology changes. And so we ended up working with Great Signs. They found a buyer for us for that sign. Unfortunately, it was more for the scrap of the sign than it was the actual sign.
Yeah, because they'd been left out in weather, I was
It
told, yeah.
was, and so we ended up, we believe, between the two, we ended up with about $75,000 recouped from that whole sign fiasco.
Okay, now I know the rest of the story. Thank you. Okay, a couple other questions. Now, when you do weddings, you get that total revenue. You don't have to share that with VenueWorks, is that correct?
That is correct.
So is that why you have more weddings and shows?
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say weddings are much more profitable.
For you, but not for the downtown business owners. So, I've been getting a lot of complaints from business owners down there, especially within the restaurant business and other little, well, the afternoon things, of course, that's different, that's day traffic, but their businesses pretty much shut down when you don't have a wedding. If you have a wedding on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, our restaurants are hurting. So is there some way that you can all work together so that it's an even keel? Because that's their money, and whenever you have weddings, they lose money, and vice versa. So I was hoping that maybe somehow you could work together and, make it even, so that they wouldn't be hurting so much on a weekend, because you could totally wipe them out on one weekend.
Sure, and I think that's what I mentioned before with that balancing act.
You did bring it up, I know it's
Finding that-
tough, but I think we
Yeah,
need to do more balancing.
Yeah, certainly. So there's peak wedding seasons, as I've learned very quickly on the job, that the peak times in July and October where everyone wants to get married. So those are usually the busier times on that. But yes, I think we continue to put that puzzle together in the pieces to try to figure out the best fit for, obviously, financially for the Rialto, but also obviously driving as many people as we can downtown, to your point.
Right, because you gotta figure, are you a wedding venue or are you a theater?
Yep.
That's the balance that we've gotta figure out here.
Yes.
Okay. Talking about going to the state reps, years ago, Jerry Weller secured a huge grant for the Rialto when we did the Hall of Mirrors and with that restoration. So you might wanna tap into our, federal representation. It's no longer Foster, but I believe it's Underwood now, and I'm not sure who the other person is, but you might wanna go that way as well to get some funding for this theater, since it is a historic landmark.
Absolutely, appreciate that.
And I thank you for taking my advice and not putting the fireworks on the roof this year. Made me scared every time. But having said that, now, what was the quote that you had to restore the roof?
To restore the roof?
Well, that's your number one priority, fixing the roof, because everything else.
Yeah, so the roof and the masonry work that goes along with doing the roof and stuff, because we have a lot of filling masonry up there. When you factor everything in, that eats up pretty much the entire $5 million. Yeah, it was just a touch over.
Okay, so there are some grants out there, and there are, like I said, tap into your legislatures. And then I think we have in the budget $375 for this year, but you're asking $475. Mayor, what do you think about this roof thing? It's kind of the whole theater. You can't do anything without the top.
A couple things. Number one, thank you for coming forward, and I appreciate the, putting it all out there, what exactly challenges you guys are looking at. And I want to thank the board. Since I've resumed the position of liaison, I've been working with you guys. I know you've done a good job there in this board in getting the theater back online. I guess what scares me is when you just got a $5 million grant, and we thought, from our perspective, at least I thought, that the theater was going to be flush, and you're not. There's still issues with the roof. If you don't secure additional grant money, what options do you have? It's an open-ended question. I don't know if you have the answer to it, but I guess that's what I'm thinking about as I'm hearing this. I have no issue with supporting the theater. We always have. I agree with Councilwoman Quillman, and I know we've had these conversations offline about shows versus weddings. We don't subsidize other banquet halls or wedding halls in Joliet. So, and I think it's important to bring people downtown, but I do understand there's no risk to the wedding. It's pure profit. So I understand why you're doing it. But it's just, I guess in the overall picture, you're looking at an $8 million shortfall between work you need done and money you have. Where's that coming from? Is there
We did receive $2.1 million from the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant that we have available. So that takes us up to, $7 million. board has earmarked that money for capital improvement.
Okay.
I'm hoping that out of a strategic plan, that funding for both operating and capital would come out of that, or be certainly one of the issues that's addressed.
Now, I know the library talked about bringing out-of-county people or out-of-city people into their system. One of the things that, since I've been mayor, that I've been preaching is to reach out to Will County, because Rialto doesn't just serve Joliet residents. And certainly, a lot of elected officials from the county like to show up at your banquets or whatever. Has there been an outreach to, Councilwoman McComb recommended federal officials, you talk about state officials, what about Will County? We all know they were flush with COVID, buddy, more than anybody, so.
And yes, they are, Bob, and that's the, I guess, the start of the conversation with Jennifer regarding the ARPA funds. We do intend to ask for a significant amount.
Okay, very good.
As I understand it, this economic development silos is funded to the extent of $10 million is what I've heard. So we're gonna ask for a significant amount, we'll see where it goes.
Good, that's good news. And then the last thing, and this is minor compared to, at least dollar-wise compared to what we're talking about, but when I first came back as liaison, I talked about the issue with Councilman Mudrin and the monies that were paid out to his firm. Do we know, Kevin or Jim, have we ever seen that contract or know how much money your theater paid Councilman Mudrin to write an insurance policy?
I don't have the answer.
I don't have that contract. I don't believe we do.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I have to be consistent. I said it at your meeting, I'm gonna say it here. It was unethical, and our Inspector General told us illegal for Councilman Mudrin to take that money when he was a liaison and profit from it. I believe his firm should pay back the Rialto the money that they took. That's my position. I know it's not a lot of money when we're talking about $11 or $8 million, but I think there's an ethical issue, and I think we have it here at the council. We're the stewards of the people's money. We have a fiduciary relationship with the people of Joliet. None of us vote to give this yearly stipend so that one of us can be profiting from it, and that's what happened.
So just to bring you up to date on that, the firm that we're working with, the engineering firm JOK, one of the first things they did was recommend to us that there was a group out there called the National Historic Trust. One of their arms provides insurance. We went to them directly, and actually Mudrin King went to them in January, and they declined to bid or quote. We went to them, and they did quote to us, and they did reduce the premium another $26,000. Effective November 15th, we have moved away from Mudrin King, and we are now with Chubb as our carrier.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. That's good news. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more comment when he's finished.
Okay. A real quick clarification. I think it gets a little muddled, a little confused. Welcome aboard, or welcome to the city. Who is employed by Venue Works? I mean, the theater manager, is he employed by Venue Works or the board?
The Rialto Authority or the Rialto Foundation has no employees.
So it's all Venue Works?
That's all they do.
Okay. So you work for Venue Works as well? That would be your employer?
Every full-time and part-time employee is employed by Venue Works.
Okay. I had two questions. You had mentioned, or in your presentation, it showed that you had 7 sold-out shows since July. 7 total shows, or just the sold-out shows?
Just 7 sold-out shows.
How many total shows since July?
I have to pull that number for you. So off the top of my head, I'd probably say 25.
Okay. And the last question I had is, up until now, we've visited this issue off and on, going back to my first day here in 2011. We're talking about the capital improvements, and it's important to get that message out so you can get grants and private sector support through donations, and certainly encourage people to come spend their money there so that you can increase your bottom line. But the city subsidy has nothing to do with the capital improvements. It goes towards operations. Did I understand you correctly, or was I wishful thinking that maybe you're willing, I can't direct this just as the manager, but also as the board, right, to commit any city amount to capital only, not to budget. So Venue Works has to make the operating budget work. Like any business, like all the businesses that we have downtown, some of which are here tonight, you gotta make it work, and the city portion goes only towards capital improvements. Is that something that they're interested in committing to formally?
That money we receive from the city.
If you were to receive money from the city, is not for operations at all, just for capital improvements?
Yeah, currently it's just for operations. What
Right.
you're suggesting is flipping that, correct?
Correct.
could be a longer term view. Right now, we need that money for operations.
So it's not something that would be possible right now, in your opinion?
Possible right now, no.
Okay. All right, that's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment, back to the fireworks. Did those go off too early, or were they supposed to be, was that the timing for it? Because the parade was still going on when they shot the fireworks off, it's usually at the end of the parade.
Yeah, we have nothing to do with the fireworks.
that, and I was out of town, actually, I wasn't here, so I don't know.
Well, I have to say, whatever the mistake was or whatever it was perfect timing because our Katie was getting married that day and just right after the pictures, the fireworks went off. And they could see it from the Patrick Haley mansion.
Can't take
so.
credit for that, Jeff.
Okay, well, it was a nice mistake for her. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate the time.
And the last presentation we have is the Joliet Area Historical Museum budget.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. There we are, okay. Thank you for inviting us to present tonight. Carrying over the 2.0 theme, I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about just sort of a snapshot, programmatic snapshot, if you will. As Councilwoman Reardon knows, I can talk about the museum for a very long time, and we're already an hour in, so I will try to keep it high level. But the story of the museum currently, we're calling Jam 2.0, and that's kind of a play on the fact that we are celebrating 20 years, if you can believe it. I know it feels like the museum just opened. I've been here for fully half of that time, so boy, time flies. But we're happy to tell you that we have some wonderful growth and some opportunities that I'm going to talk to you about a little bit tonight, some of which for the first time. But we've moved from a city center museum into a four property portfolio, kind of moving towards the centennial Route 66 in 2026 that we are very excited about. So certainly you know how it's been. I remember spray painting circles in the ground out there at the old Joliet prison, if you can see them. We were very aggressive during the pandemic. We dug in, we decided we were not going to lay off staff. We were going to do everything we could to keep ourselves going. So I was quoted earlier today, Ken Chenault, who's a CEO, who once said, leaders define reality and then offer hope. So during the pandemic, it was a process where we know what we can't do, so let's talk about what we can do. So I won't revisit that. Hopefully we won't have to revisit that period of time again. But this is how it's going, right? So we've gotten some really wonderful news and some support. Certainly you all have alluded to tonight going to federal and state officials, and I'm happy to report to you we've had some great success with that. At the federal level, Congressman Foster has committed $3 million, a community funding project, to continued stabilization of the prison, and Representative Larry Walsh Jr. has committed $3.5 million of grant funding to continued stabilization of the prison site as well. So we're very pleased about that. The goal is to further stabilize the site and from there to automate it, if you will. We want to further monetize it. We want to allow people to, as many as possible, visit. We've seen a lot of growth with self-guided tours. So, when we started the project, for a variety of reasons, we were doing guided tours only, with continued help from the trades, with money out of the change jar here and there. We've been able to do a lot of improvements that have made the site safer, that have in turn allowed us to get more people through the doors, and we want to keep that going. We also have a public native gardens project happening at the prison that is in part funded by CDBG grant money. We're very excited about that. It's been endorsed by the Collins Street Neighborhood Council as well as the Forest Park Neighborhood Council, and certainly coupled with really a retroactive lighting grant for a tourism assistance program. We really want to remove, as it has been termed, an attractive nuisance out there, and really underscore the point that the prison's here to stay and that it is habitated and it no longer is friendly to break into. Not forgetting, of course, our City Center Museum. We have some really cool projects happening there that we're excited about. I alluded to the Route 66 Centennial happening in 2026, and the grant money is already flowing for that in anticipation of that centennial. So via the Heritage Corridor CVB, the museum has about $300,000 worth of projects. The CVB captured 1.5 million total market share out of a $4 million grant pool, the largest share. So we really think that's a great indication of future support for Route 66 activities, not only in the city but in the region. But our facility certainly is benefiting. So in the middle photo there, you have a build around actual film-worn Blues Brothers suits that were donated, loaned by Judy Belushi herself. And I've spoken with her recently. She has more John Belushi artifacts that she's willing to loan. We're really excited about that. So kind of expanding that, the visitor expectations around Joliet, Jake, and the Blues Brothers. We're expanding our museum store. That photo on the left there. We have just really stepped up our product line, so to speak, with Blues Brothers merchandise, with Illinois-made merchandise, local merchandise. And it's a good time to plug that right before the holiday season. So if you need some unique, one-of-a-kind gifts, come see us. And again, that was funded by the Route 66 grant. And then to my right, we have what we've termed the Champions Gallery. So we've been approached over the years by various, certainly the Sports Hall of Fame, Project Acclaim, the Friends of Community Public Art, so kind of memorializing those projects and the people that have been honored over the years and giving them a permanent place. So people, when they come from all around the world, can, get information about who our historic champions are in the city of Champions. And then we have a National Park Service grant that we won that really is our kind of our programmatic roadmap, and we're really excited to have the National Park Service branding. You couldn't really ask for a federal entity to get involved, and that was a co-op grant with the City of Joliet. It's one of several I've mentioned, so it's a little bit smaller. It's $35,000, but again, it will. We hope get us on the National Register for Historic Places and open up even larger grant monies and funds moving forward. So right now we are managing about $7.5 million of pledge grant funding. So it's a number we're excited about. There is a large asterisk there for a reason. Most of these grants, if not all of them, we're kind of working on the state and federal money, are going to have to entirely go to the project and are expressly forbidden from paying operating expenses. So it's a good story, but it does have an asterisk. And then certainly we cannot talk about this year without talking about Blues Brothers Con, how happy we were with that event, and many of you were there. Certainly, the city played a big part in that. We're grateful to the city. We intentionally gave the city sponsorship amenities for that reason. And at the end of the day, we had a conversation at the board level about, it wasn't really a fundraiser. We went into it knowing we had some larger state and federal piles, so we didn't have the pressure we would normally have of having a fundraiser. So we decided to do this. It was an offer made to us, and I think conventional wisdom on the board was one, if we turned down the offer, we probably would not get it again, and two, that it was a great marketing exposure opportunity for the prison, and that proved correct. So the image at the top left is it's one of my favorite from the Tribune, where this was about passing the torch of the Blues Brothers, right? Passing it from an older generation down to a younger one, and kind of that staying power that the film has, and certainly Joliet's direct role in that movie. Lesser films have more rabid fan following, so we learned a lot from that first event, but at the end of the day, what I said publicly, privately, is it made the city look good. It was not just about the museum or one organization. It was about making our city look good and having a moment, and after so much heartbreak and anxiety over the past 2 years, to just have this kind of moment where we let loose and we had a fun night. At least everyone else there did.
Don't you remember?
There was a lot of anxiety, so I'm recovering slowly but surely, but I wanted everyone else to have a good time, right? That's what a good host does. So we've heard calls at the museum for more cultural diversity, inclusion in our programming, and I'm proud that we have stepped up and done some really cool things. As we like to say at the museum, culture is cool. So we started with the Cinco de Mayo event on appropriately May 5th. We went to the community, some of our partners, and went and identified authentic food and entertainment. And we had a packed house, right? Councilman Greer taught me how to dance, if I remember right, tried to. But it's one of several initiatives. In Juneteenth, on Sunday the 19th, that also highlights the partnership we have with the city. The organizer, I believe, first went to the city, was referred to the museum, and we were able to get together, and we had over 100 people for a Juneteenth event. We were really wowed by the turnout, by the speakers, the programs. It was a really great day. And then certainly not limited to that, recently the Slovenian Grape Harvest Festival, resurrecting this long-time community fixture, the Grape Harvest Festival. That started in the 70s. And I'll talk a little bit about the property behind that, but I don't know if this was known, and Mayor, you were certainly attended, but we, as part of that, we were given a certificate from the Slovenian government. The Council General was present for that. So, the Republic of Slovenia is really into this project, and is kind of happy that the museum is bringing forward and not letting this part of Joliet culture go. It's a big part of Joliet culture, as we all know. So, so culture is cool, and that's just kind of a mantra we repeat at the museum, and we are looking to expand and diversify the program. So what's next? The Old Joliet Prison, we really strongly feel in our conversations with state, with federal people, with Illinois tourism, it really has the power to unlock a larger story about our region's industrial heritage, and really the goal is to make Joliet, Will County, our area, a starting point for Route 66. There's already chatter online about that, about how people want to avoid Chicago for a myriad of reasons, and are kind of looking and saying, hey, if you go to Joliet, they have a great museum and visitor center. It's a great place to start. So, we're got our eye on that. We're looking towards that in 2026, and we like our chances. So again, going back to the Slovenian culture, we were planning to open in 2023 a new property. We had a little sneak peek at the Slovenian event in October. This has been completely underwritten by Kenneth and Irene Odorizzi, who's Irene's mother and father ran the store, the Planincheks, and it showcases a neighborhood. People remember going to that store. We've talked to a lot of people. It was open through the 70s, and it's a family business. And I've made the comment that it looks like someone shut the door in 1950 and never opened it again. It's really an amazing property. I was talking about another thing earlier today, but what I can also say about this is when you walk into those quarters, it's like getting a big hug from your grandmother. It's amazing. So, and Slovenian Row is a Route 66 story, and the continuity of the immigrant experience then as now. And that poster is a recently discovered in our collection artifact. It's written in Slovenian, it's from 1919, and it is encouraging Slovenian immigrants to participate in the census. So, talk about something that really reaches through time and is relevant today, as we were just doing that with the last census and encouraging immigrants to participate in that census. Finally, the UD Tower, and we recently had a memorandum of understanding for the operation of that. I'm happy to tell you we've put that grant to bed as of Friday, so we have labeling, everything good to go in there, and we are ready to open that up to the public. It's been completely refurbished, fully ADA compliant. We are really optimistic about the quote-unquote railfan community and their support. Apparently Joliet is known throughout the railfan community, but there's not much for them to do. So this is a big thing for them to do, and the chatter we're hearing from the railfan community, they know more about it than I do. It's great. So, and then this is something we're really excited about, is a portable exhibit on Black history in Joliet, and we've had a call for this for a long time by a lot of people, and I'm certainly thinking of the late great Michael Clark, who was on our board. Mike was involved in this, and it tells the story of things like Martin Luther King spoke in Joliet, Ida B. Wells was in Joliet, so you can't find a lot on that, and that's something that him and I, expressed mutual frustration on. I mean, if Martin Luther King Jr. comes to your city, that's a big deal. So we kind of talk about that. What happened between the 20s with the Great Migration and Joliet being a transportation center, having kind of synonymously going with the Great Migration and civil rights organizing. So there are a lot of fascinating stories. Again, if you have not heard of the Brown Book, it's a fascinating historical reference. So we're looking to kind of tell this part of the story to a wider audience in a portable exhibit, which will allow us to do that. And we're going to be done with that very soon. Community partnerships for unforgettable experiences. This is just a snapshot of our field trips. Certainly that's important to the museum. So we're looking at about 1,500, that number alone, and we would like to expand and grow that. Councilwoman Reardon, you know on the board that we've hired a very talented education director. Part of the charge is to expand the field trip program, get more kids there, find partners to fund getting more kids there. It was really difficult after the pandemic to get field trips in. They did not want the kids to leave the school, so we really had to push, we had to work, we had to kind of identify partners who would underwrite the field trips, but they're coming back, thankfully. And then finally, people are noticing us. We've had some success. 2020 State of Illinois Excellence in Tourism Award winner, and currently tonight, starting in about 20 minutes, we are up for another one of those at the Illinois Governor's Conference on Tourism. A big one during the pandemic was a TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice designation. That was awarded to the top 10% of all TripAdvisor properties. And at that time, I think you were talking 7 or 8 million properties. And then finally, a 2020 American Association of State and Local History Leadership and History Award winner. That one's a mouthful. And certainly, we remember, Mayor, you were with us to receive the Illinois Governor's Hometown Award for Economic Development. So again, no longer just the route, but the destination. We are very excited to offer this experience, again, position ourselves as a starting point for Route 66 ahead of the Centennial. We appreciate the support we get from the city. Mayor, I know you attend a lot of museum functions, and we always credit the city. We see them as a partner and someone who we attribute our success to, so thank you. And with that, in sum, what we are requesting is a 1-year extension as is. These are 2002 numbers, $200,000, not adjusted for inflation, as we talked about, Councilwoman Reardon, at the board meeting. So, and then a 1-year extension of our current agreement as is. And I think the notion that, we're working off a 20-year agreement and we will work collectively with city staff to kind of modernize and update that over the next year. Kind of get some long-term things that are important and some short-term things that are important. So with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
A couple things. That was a great presentation. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work that you've done over there and your museum staff. The Blues Brothers event was really something of note for our city with all the international media over there, not just local or Chicago media. The house on Elizabeth Street, I had a chance to go through it. It's fascinating. When is the opening date? When are you looking to have that open?
We are closing out the building permit. We will then move to an occupancy permit, so we're confident about spring of 2023.
Okay, and just so the council's clear, and I know, Jan, you'll remember, the owners of that property came to the city looking to do something with it. So much like the prison, you partnered up with the city, and I think everyone's gonna be really pleased with what's there, so.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the first email was to Steve Jones at the time, and he sent them over, and we've, gotten close from there, and they've been keeping up their end of the bargain and then some, so.
Very good.
Yeah, the living quarter, you just open the door, it's like you walk right back into 1920s, 1930s. It's
We had to
amazing.
tear you out of there, if I remember right.
Yes, you did.
Going through all the drawers and everything.
One last thing, the merchandise mart, or whatever you want to call it, at the prison that's now open, how much success have you had there selling artifacts to people who are coming to visit the prison?
It's been great. I don't have my figures right offhand. They're somewhere in here, but it's definitely equal what we're doing at the museum. So it's been a boon, and that was always the vision. People walking up, and even if you can't go inside, can we at least get you inside and sell you a few pieces of merch before you're on the way?
Right. Very good. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Greg, not including grants or other subsidies like the city, what are the total gross revenues of all the assets of the museum? But not including grants or subsidies.
Current assets on the balance sheet.
Generated by commerce,
Generated by commerce. Earned revenue is approximately $800,000.
You can get that to us as more accurate and exact, or?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. And what are the total expenditures?
did bring it with me, so. I'll give you the exact figure. I'm gonna guess, right, currently through the fiscal year, we're up 25,000 in the black. So we strive for break even. I wanna say we did go into the black last year, marginal.
So if the operations are roughly break even, maybe 25,000 black, why do they need our money? And it's not our money, it's the taxpayers. So you would thank the city just a few minutes ago?
Sure.
You probably should thank the residents, the families, the taxpayers, it's their money.
Correct, yes, we are grateful to the taxpayers, and, you know, this basically underwrites, you know, the services we offer to the city. Certainly, we have the preservation of history, we have the economic development component. I mean, we are running 2 sites 7 days a week, some cases 12 to 14 hours. I know Collins Street business benefit, I know downtown businesses benefit, so yeah, it is an exchange for services, absolutely.
Well, to provide the services, and all you do, if you really need a total of, what is it, 260,000? Am I getting the number right? Then it really isn't a break even or in the black 25,000, is it?
Not without the 200, no. I mean,
That's what I was asking.
Yes.
Without subsidies and grants, what was the total? That's what I was asking for.
Correct, yeah, that's about 800 from revenue.
All right, see, I think you've been here 9 years? Am I
Yeah,
right?
correct, yep.
You came in 2013, correct?
Yes.
And I can't remember if you came at the end, in the middle, or as it first started out. It's almost a decade ago.
Correct.
But at the time, there were folks, and I can't say you for sure, that said at the time, if the city commits to 200,000 a year over 10 years, which is $2 million, well, long before that's over, because of the grants they tied it to that would be given to them, I think it was federal or state grants, we'll be more than self-sufficient in turning a profit, and we're not. So why should we think moving forward, more subsidies in another 10 years would make it profitable?
Sure, well, you know, again, I think the purpose of the museum and the purpose of a financial relationship with the city is offering services. So certainly I would say if the city is not satisfied we are offering those services, I've spoken, you know, at length with multiple finance directors actually about what are some KPIs, what are the things the city would like us to do with that money in addition to physically preserving the history, offering programs. So I'm happy to have the conversation. It's in the name, we're a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit that is exclusively dedicated to the history of Joliet.
So the taxpayers whose money we're using for this subsidy of 260 or so, they've opted not to take advantage of these services and pay a commercial rate to do it.
In some cases, yeah, we do have a City of Joliet discount that we extend to residents, so.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, Greg, is you're not generating enough through your relationship with customers to let go of the subsidy.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just one more quick question.
Sure.
Talking about your Brown book, do they mention Catherine Dunham in that book at all?
It might have been a little bit before her time. This was the 50s.
Okay.
I don't know if she's mentioned.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is there was a statue of her at Union Station before they remodeled it, and it was moved. Did they ever notify you or the museum? I don't remember them
I
notifying
recall
you.
talking about it with
we know where
Marty
it
at the
is?
time. It's still at Union Station.
It's still there?
It was last I checked. I don't know if it was moved again, but we offered to house it in the visitor center if it could not be placed there, and certainly
Okay.
we would.
Well, what's
look into
important
that.
about this is she grew up in Joliet on Bluff Street, and I have the whole history and also have a CD on that, and I just wanted to make sure that that doesn't get lost. So just FYI. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. First is Boise.
Greetings, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Boise Walker, and my parents are residents on the east side of Joliet, off Mills Road and Lenny Avenue. I'm here to express concerns about the agenda item for the resolution approving the First Amendment to the annexation agreement for 620 Sandal Place and 800 Richard Street. In seeking to amend the annexation agreement, the owners want to remove hydraulic rock crushing from their agreement and and add explosive assisted blasting. I'm thoroughly shocked this item even made it onto the agenda. The city council should have the residents' best interest at heart, but I stand here declaring, as a resident, I don't believe our council has the residents' best interest at heart. And they're not doing a good job of making sure that there's quality of life for the residents on the east and south side of Joliet. Now, I am a proponent for businesses coming to the area, but not at the detriment of the residents and their quality of life. Within the discussion presented by the city manager, there's no mention of how the energy from the blasting will impact the residents and their property. There was a Q&A document included, but I'm wondering if that Q&A document went out to the residents. The point at hand, the vibrations from the blasting will shake surrounding houses, and that shaking can cause damages to roofs, foundations, walls, windows, and floors. And these are the properties of taxpayers and citizens who unfortunately live next to that property. Also not included in this discussion is how far those vibrations will be transmitted. Is it 600 yards? How about 1,000 yards? Maybe 3,000 yards? Well, maybe an acre. It was not mentioned in the documentation. These vibrations can potentially be transmitted not only to surrounding homes, but local churches, local businesses, Keith Elementary School, Washington Junior High School, the Will County Health Department, Salem Village, Sunny Hill, and Joshua Arms. And the hours of operations for this facility will be during school hours, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. There are several communities across this country that have been impacted by companies, and they're fighting the blasting of their neighborhoods because of the amount of damage caused to their property and their land, including sinkholes, damaged foundations, and roof damage. Should the neighboring homeowners to 800 Richard Street start documenting the process now, showing the condition of their homes pre-blasting, and then show the impact to their homes post-blasting? I think they should. I'm not a scientist, so I'm unaware of how the hydraulic crushing has impacted local residents. But if that's the method of excavating now, why change it? Thank you.
Jim, there's a public hearing on this issue tomorrow, correct?
I believe so. I believe there's, yes,
So there'll be a chance to answer any questions, or
absolutely.
not just from the council, but from the public?
But from the public.
Okay, thank you.
There was a meeting, I guess, on November 11th.
There was a,
For the city.
yes, for the citizens there was, or earlier.
Was anybody from the city there? I mean, I didn't know about it.
I was.
How did it go?
I think that they did, I'm trying to think of the name of the company that does the blasting.
PT.
What is, I'm sorry? Quick Supply. There were several residents, I'd say there was probably 15 residents that came. They did a presentation, they asked all questions, and they seemed satisfied with the answers, so I'm not really, I'm, anxious to see what they're saying tomorrow, but they didn't seem upset by the time they left.
Yes.
Yeah, I was there with you, and there were some questions, and I believe everybody was satisfied with the answers.
But there'll be a public hearing, this can be vetted tomorrow?
That's correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Next is Susanna Abaro.
Susanna Ibarra, Ingalls Park, Joliet, Illinois. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am here this evening as a community advocate for the South and East Side residents regarding tonight's public hearing for the First Amendment to the annexation agreement at Sandal and Richard Street. That's 582-22 on the agenda. In reviewing the documentation provided by the city for this hearing, I found it quite concerning that there is a request to allow blasting at Sandell and Richards in order to establish, expand, and operate a new quarry. Now, what's even more concerning about this amendment is the complete omission of studies, information, documentation, or any evidence of discussion of the quarry's potential negative effects on well water, both public and private. I find this shocking. Any reference to the water has been completely ignored in all the information provided in tonight's agenda, as well as in the agenda packet. There are so many questions that need to be explored prior to this event ever coming up for a hearing, since nothing occurs in a vacuum, especially with issues dealing with water flowing and moving beneath us. On the most basic level, these questions include, does the area rely upon a shallow aquifer? If yes, how will the quarry affect it? Will the quarry affect the water quality? Is there a risk that private wells may dry up? What is the potential for private wells and or public wells to be contaminated, since it is known that South Joliet has porous limestone? What could potentially leak into our water supply through the porous limestone from this new hole in the ground? Is there a possibility of contaminants from the areas such as coal ash quarry on Brandon Road making its way to the areas as a result of this new quarry? Water will flow from where to this quarry? Will the water table in the area be affected? How far could the potential negative effects on water extend in this area? It is a quarter of a mile, a half a mile, or is it more than that? Is it expected for residents to fend for themselves, to research these questions and plead their case before the council in order to protect homes and health? No, it's not the responsibility of the residents. We all need to be able to trust and rely on the city manager and the city council to look out for the general health and welfare of residents by investigating the potential consequences before this item comes to hearing, and to provide information on these specific issues to residents well beyond the 600-foot notification rule. Thus, without any attempt to find answers or information for any of these basic questions regarding the effects on water, I am very, very worried for the residents in this area, and I am one of them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next is Betsy Satcher.
Good evening to the mayor and city council. I do have a few questions about this. And my first question is, what effects will the blasting have on the clients at the Sunny Hill Nursing Home? And we know that there are other nursing homes in the area too. But Sunny Hill Nursing Home is less than a mile away. It's 0.4 miles away from where this site is located and where this blasting will take place. Has anyone talked to the administrator of this nursing home to see, if they have concerns about the effects of, the blasting and shaking? Will it cause problems for, their potential, the elderly people that live there? How would this affect them emotionally, mentally, physically? Then we have Edna Keith School. Edna Keith School is located at 400 4th Avenue. It's 0.7 miles away. 2 minutes away. Children ages 5 through 12. What effects will this have, the sound or the shaking? What effect would that have on these young children? There's Washington Junior High, 400 to Richards Street. It's 0.06 miles away. Again, 2 minutes away from this area. Has anyone sat down and had a conversation with the principals of these schools to talk about what possible effect that it could have on these young children in the area. Let's take into consideration the long-term effect that it might have on them, on the people that live, near this area. Too many times we've heard said, I'm voting for the less of the two evils. Well, my question is, do we need any evil to happen, in our area where we live? Maybe we should vote for no evil. We don't want any evil. We don't deserve any evil. Let's say to the business owners, once you approve things for them, you will come back and say, tell them, well, we're going to hold you accountable. Well, instead of saying we're going to hold you accountable, why not just prevent the problem before it happens? Why can't we just say no to these things that we know that won't be profitable for our citizens? And I think the very best way to solve a problem is to prevent that problem before it even starts. So we're asking that you really, that you vote no for resolution 582-22. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next is Megan Cooper.
Hi, good evening. Megan Cooper, Joliet, City Council. First off, I'm very confused on how this item even made it here, considering that the zoning for this area is actually I-1, which is quiet, light industrial. Blasting is everything but that. It seems that this should have been actually going to be rezoned for something like this. This goes against everything that I-1 is. I know that this area is a patchwork quilt. It's City of Joliet and it's also a county. However, we all are city. We all are Joliet, whether or not if you're city or county. I went to Indiana School. I also attended Washington Junior High. I am a Stillman from Joliet Central, and I love Joliet. I may not be in the city of Joliet. However, that doesn't change my roots. That does not change how I feel about the city and its people. And when I'm saying this, on this side of town, on the south side of town, this is what we expect. We already have a quarry that has documented that they have changed the water table in that area. What about a quarry over by Washington School now? What is it going to do? What are the unforeseen consequences behind this? Everyone in here should deserve a certain quality of life, and just because we're on this side of the river doesn't make us any less than anybody else. So I am here today begging and pleading for you to think about Joliet, whether or not it's city or if you're county, because Miss Betty said it better than I could have ever said it. At what point are you going to put people over profit? Because the quality of life in this area, you're talking about potential water pollution. You're already talking about I-80. You're talking about unforeseen consequences that have been documented over times with other sites like this in a heavily populated area. Please do not do this to us. Because we deserve, our children deserve this, deserve a certain quality of life. I have a 5-year-old son who has sensory issues. Certain noises scares him. And when you have a child that has something like that, that have to try to calm them down to let them know that everything is gonna be okay, that they're gonna be safe. What about the other kids that are at this school that's close by, that the blasting is shaking is gonna do? Because I'm pretty sure my son isn't the only one that had these type of issues. There was a reason in the past why this was not allowed, the blasting, and why the mining was done another way. Look at the area that this is in. Yes, do things like this have to take place and should it be done? Yes, but not in certain areas, and this is not it. So once again, I'm not even asking for you to table this. I'm not even asking for you to ask any more questions, just alone on the quality of life of the people in this area who deserve more. I'm asking you to flat out deny this. Because we deserve more. We are all Joliet, whether or not you're from the west side, east side, south side, city, or county. We are Joliet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nate Washburn?
Mayor Odekirk, members of the City Council, Nate Washburn, I'm here on the amendment to the annexation agreement for 620 Sandal Place and 800 Richards. I'll reserve most of my comments for the public hearing tomorrow night. I would just like to extend to you that this is an existing quarry. It's been an existing quarry for many years. To certain people's concerns about the change in methodology, this change is designed and anticipated to create better efficiencies for the operation, to create less noise, less pollution, less dust. And I will go through all of that tomorrow night, but I do want you to rest assured that we did have a neighborhood meeting, we have engaged with the community, and we believe that the plan we have in place is to make this situation better, as it is an existing approved quarry and could continue on operations as it sits today. But we want to do better, and we hope to do better, and we hope with your approval, we can in fact do better and do more.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item?
Hello, Margie Seapon. I live on 1114 Woodhouse Drive in Joliet. Over the weekend, as I do for every council meeting, I take a look at the agenda, and this agenda item, public hearing, caught my eye. And why it caught my eye was the fact that there was blast and site information. In the very first, when I opened up the document, it had said blasting questions and answers. And the first question that was asked for information was, why is my house shaking? That bothered me. So I don't know much about blasting at all. So I knew that there was Vulcan Quarry, that there was a lot of discussion. It was back in 2009. So I went back to the Plan Commission minutes for 2009 on this. And this is where I found that Vulcan Quarry, there was a discussion, disagreement, debate regarding the zoning. And it needed to be I-2 because it's not clean and quiet anymore. This is I-1. I'm not against business. I'm a capitalist, but I'm a balanced capitalist. And how I see it's weighing the pros and cons, the risks and the benefits. And this quarry is very much surrounded on several, almost entirely by residential. And again, I'm sure the community meeting went well, but this is something that I was asking myself, I don't know what I don't know. And in looking at those Plan Commission minutes from 2009, the questions about water came up. And so I just started doing some Google searching, and I teach economics, scientific papers are very difficult for me to read, especially geology graphs, topography for water. And I don't know if there's a shallow aquifer there. I don't know how far these vibrations will travel.
I don't know how far if there could be negative consequences on water, and how far will it extend? And, you know, I looked at the notification area of the 600 foot, for the 600 foot rule. Are we, what happens when people outside, could it be? I don't know. Could it be a situation where the vibrations, depending upon where they're blasting, moves half a mile, and it startles people? We don't know what we don't know. So I'm asking for some information, some studying. I mean, I'm curious as to Ms. Swisher's opinion on the aquifer. What is there? Again, I can't provide any evidence, and trying to dig into something like this is intense. And there's no way I could do it in 48 hours or 48 years. I am not a scientist. So this is what I'm asking. Again, I'm not against business, but there has to be balanced. And is it going to be a problem later on where we should have asked and we didn't know? If you do simple Google searches around the country, Miramar, Florida is one, Steelville, Minnesota is another, and you have residential property owners, I'll wrap it up, who have damage to their houses from the blasting, and they have no recourse. I just wanted to be heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to the city manager to review the remainder of the items.
Okay, I'll move along rather quickly. So agenda item 576-22, amendment number 1, professional services agreement for the Compass Business Park and surrounding area water and sanitary infrastructure needs investigation to Strand Associates and Company for the amount of $67,600. Agenda item 577-22, amendment number 2 for the 2021 sanitary sewer rehabilitation program professional services agreement to RJN Group in the amount of $50,000. Agenda item 578-22, amendment number 2 for the 2022 sewer investigation and rehabilitation program professional services agreement to RJN Group Incorporated in the amount of $31,500. Agenda item 579-22, change order number 1 for the West Side Water Waste Treatment Plant, influent lift station improvements, phase 3 to William Brothers Construction, Inc. in the amount of $65,306.75. Agenda item 580-22, change order number 5 for the 2021 sanitary sewer rehabilitation program to Performance Pipelining Incorporated in the amount of $37,570.11.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify, the first item that the city manager read, which would be for the Compass Business Park and surrounding area water and sanitary sewer infrastructure need investigation, the $67,000, $600 contract to Strand and Associates will be reimbursed to the city by the developer. That's in the agreement. I just wanted to make that clear.
Absolutely, Councilman. Under licenses and permit applications, agenda item 582-22, public hearing for resolution approving the First Amendment to the annexation agreement for 620 Sandoval Place and 800 Richards Street. Agenda item 583-22, a public hearing regarding the ordinance approving a vacation of a 20 by 100 foot portion of a public alley south of Grove Street. Agenda item 584-22, a public hearing for the 2023 fiscal year budget. Agenda item 586-22, an ordinance abating the taxes herefore levied for the year 2022. Agenda item 587-22, ordinance for the levy and assessment of a special service area taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022, in and for the 1996 Joliet Special Service Area Number 14, which is Joliet City Center. Agenda item 588-22, ordinance for the levy and assessment of a special service area, taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022, in and for the 2009 Joliet Special Services Area Number 7, the Park Hill subdivision. Agenda item 589-22, ordinance for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022, in and for the Joliet Public Library, Will and Kendall County. Agenda item 590-22, ordinance for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022, in and for the city of Joliet, Will and Kendall Counties. Agenda item 591-22, ordinance to include the 2023 annual budget for the city of Joliet discretionary subsidy to the Will County Metropolitan Exposition and Auditorium Authority, the Rialto, and the Joliet Area Historical Museum. Agenda item 592-22, ordinance approving the 2023 fiscal year annual budget for the city of Joliet, Will and Kendall Counties, Illinois. Agenda item 593-22, ordinance amending the 2022 budget for the city of Joliet for the purchase of property located at 501 South Richard Street and approving and authorizing the execution of the real estate agreement, sale agreement, and commercial licensing lease agreement. Agenda item 594-22, ordinance amending the 2022 budget for the city of Joliet for the purchase of property located at 515 South Richard Street and approving and authorizing the execution of the real estate sales agreement and commercial lease agreement. Agenda item 596-22, a resolution associated with the Claris Park subdivision. Agenda item of 597-22, a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with the Joliet Area Historical Museum. Agenda item 598-22, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the County of Will for the placement of a license plate reading cameras located on county highways. And finally, agenda item 599-22, a resolution authorizing certain employees for the city of Joliet to sign checks, vouchers, and warrants for the disbursement of city's funds. Subject to that, I will withhold my comments, and if there's any other questions, that concludes my...
Mayor, I have a question. Jim, do you know, originally when the majority of this council approved the issue, or guaranteeing the issuance of the $6 million bonds for the library, it was supposed to be paid back by the state grant. Has that happened? Or are we paying on bonds now?
I don't...
The library paid, it's not part of the tax bill.
No, I know that, but we guaranteed it. We issued the bonds, but it was supposed to be paid by, we were told at the time there was a grant coming from the state that didn't know what, has that come yet?
I am not aware, but I...
Can you check into that?
Yeah, absolutely. If that
I don't think I'm the
case,
only one who
we'll sign
remembers
it.
that. There was a state grant attached to that amount of money, and some of us even said, we'll believe the grant when we see it. Well, apparently, we haven't seen it from the state yet. Or at least if we have, please confirm we have.
Yes, yes.
Next is public comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak under public comment? Seeing none, I believe there's a request for closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition, or conveyance of litigation, which the meeting will adjourn?
So move.
Second.
The motion is seconded. Councilman Clement?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin? Oh, I'm sorry, she. Oh, to
She
adjourn.
said aye. She's muted.
Councilman Guerrero?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
sorry, Mayor.
Oh, aye.
Real people.